It's wonderful rainy Sunday morning. We didn't have rain for so many weeks, so maybe nature is happy and the swans in our little lake also, because the lake is very low. I'm happy to see you here all in, let's say, our working place here. The pictures you see around are from Mr. Morgner. He's a famous Chemnitz artist. Today I'm very, very happy to have two artists next to me, whom I know already a little bit longer, and who said immediately, yes, we come to Chemnitz, and we bring what we do, our work, because I'm famous to present people wrong sometimes. So, and I start gentleman first, because I'm a lady, so I reverse it, you know. So, and you have studied in Gießen? Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. That's a very long time ago, but somewhere we have to start. And Helena, you have studied in Hildesheim, am I right? No, in Gießen too. That's what I was. That was a thought.
That's how we met.
Yeah, you see. And I just wanted to ask, when you started to study in Gießen, was that rather fresh or already longer, this Studiengang?
Oh, we were the first two guys, or not two, but we were about 20, I think, who started off. So maybe the most known to all of you is René Polish, who was one of our colleagues, who's running Volksbühne in Berlin now.
So you originally don't come from dance, so you didn't take back. Can you, both of you, show quickly your way, and then I pass it on to your landscapes?
Yes, as we directors came out of the studies, writers like Arndt and me, I was starting working with actors at the beginning, and then I realized I would rather like to change working with dancers, which was very early, already in the beginning of the 90s. So till now, I'm working for 30 years with dancers. As a freelance, I call myself not so much a choreographer, but a theater dance director. And so usually I'm working in black boxes. All the pieces which I have done are really like made for theater inside. And I mean, of course, I think everybody of us knows it. Corona did a huge change, and I started to work outside in cities on strange little mobile cars, and doing choreographies for the cars and the dancers on the cars, and so on and so on. And then later I started to think about landscape theater, and this is a very new approach for me, and what I'm going to show you in my presentation is my first trial, what I did with this term of landscape theater.
We are almost to the topic, huh? Okay, but I have to tell you a little bit. My way went through journalism, and I became the editor of Tanz, which is a kind of rather well-known magazine here in Germany, or in the German-speaking communities. And I did that for 25 years, and then I was founding Tanz Dance. This is what you see here. Tanz Dance is meant to support journalists, dance journalists mainly, to travel the world and to have an international exchange. So we bring together the perspectives from all over the world. And that's what we collected here, is what you see. That's the present point of the thing. So South America and Australia are still missing, but we are working on. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think nowadays we are really also, due to Corona, to a point where many things have changed. We have to reflect many things. We were suddenly blocked. We couldn't do what we do. And we have a lot of new projects going on. New projects, you can also click in Google, you put in dance in open spaces. and you realize that there are a lot of little initiatives. Many have developed through COVID. And so I would like to give open the presentation for you both projects, and then we go to the discussion.
So, yeah, thank you, Sabrina. And good morning all together, also to you and from me. Good morning in this public space. It is a public space, although this space is usually locked and the key belongs to the administration. So that the key, that's my question. Who's got the right to hold the key of a public space? With Rail2Dance, there has been this aim to give the art of dancing another visibility out of the box, the black box here, for dancing among the public square. But what does this act of maybe liberalization mean? A street needs some rules, as you know, in public, as the theater does. But is real dance only happening in the black box here? And leaving the black box, is it nothing but a sort of advertisement, basically, for big stages, for those who are financing your adventures, while dancers are risking their dancing in unlocked public parks or busy streets? Or are we really about to leave the theater because something is maybe wrong inside? Since Renaissance times only, we've got used to stage dances, bringing a choreography into black box theaters. Since theaters are walled to ask you to pay a certain entrance fee. It is a protective act. The theater protects itself from any audience unwilling to pay. Or dancers are to be protected whose behavior could otherwise be interrupted or badly accused. While we dance in parks, on train stations, bus stations, in an airport terminal, popping up on staircases, is dance in this case as free as it can happen anywhere? And why appears dance suddenly so unprotected in the midst of the society? Maybe dance can do this because it has become more self-confident, more direct, more political, more confrontational. It ventures out of its protective house, and dance dares to make movements in an act of freedom of speech. Maybe dance has taken off its blinkers. Interestingly, dancing amidst the traffic on tubes with wheelchairs, on roller skates or Piaggio Upper tricycles has. We live faster than ever. Faster than a stage like the one we saw yesterday can show. More, and not always for the sake of the climate. And even if we at the same time worldwide, not only professionally, we got friends on all continents, and we hop like fleas around the globe, real or on rails or virtually by Zoom. This phenomena has been called dromology by the French philosopher Paul Virilio already in the 1970s, at a time when dancers appeared increasingly and the first time on streets and public spaces, like the famous rooftop dances of Trisha Brown in 1973. And now, 50 years later, we talk about slow touring, about sustainability, nachhaltigkeit, in dance and alike, and we can see easily between rooftop dancing or actions in open landscape, dance has become a conqueror. There has been a shift in our society, not only in terms of speed or velocity, there's also been a shift in terms of range. We are able to communicate with dances, theaters, festivals in China, Brazil, Nigeria, Australia, Russia. We call it cultural exchange as an increasing amount of knowledge about cultures which appear not longer exotic to us at all. Let's go for a moment to a place where theaters not yet built as black boxes. Let's travel to Uzbekistan. First to the capital of Tashkent, then you go west by train. You'll find a tiny region called Khorasan. Here, the most probably oldest still living dance is executed by the people. This dance is called Lasky, and its roots go back to the age of worshipping fire, to the first immaterial sensation as it was featured by the Persian movement of Zarathustra, the Zoroastrians. So this is more than 3,000 years ago. The holy fire, which was imitated by the dancers, the leaking of the flame as much as how you are recovering from an ice-cold winter, starting to shiver and then to move like a flame. This truly ancient dance has never been developed for stages, as a stage wasn't existing then. Only the Greeks later built the amphitheater, a staircase in a mountain with a beautiful sea view, an echo chamber, which allowed people to sit and to applaud. All this, Lasky, as much as later the appearance of the chorus in the amphitheater in many cities around the Mediterranean, happened as something we call a landscape theater. Landscape is something designed by humans through agriculture or through nomadism with its cattle tracks or through mining. All movements of occupying nature by taming the wild into a landscape, a public park, a space to move, are meant to tame space. And only as little as 300 years ago, we started to erect black boxes like this. Black box theaters in almost every city, this time to exclude the city, exclude the landscape, and exclude the nature. That's why we today are aiming to rediscover nature through its climate crisis, for example, but also to rediscover the roots of dancing. And this rediscovery is exactly what Helena Waldman is researching. After finding dance of Lasky in Uzbekistan, she was moving one step forward to implement the idea of the landscape as what she has called the landscape theater. Here you are, Helena. It's your turn.
Also from me, good morning, also to the ones who are at home, at the computers, far away. So welcome to our speech, and I would like to travel a little bit further, since Arndt told you about Uzbekistan, where we were together and explored Lasky together. I would like to take you to a little bit more sunny place, which is the south of France. And I would like to go to the, this is not what I want to show. Exactly, this is here. This is at the south of France. It's a prehistorical museum in the little tiny village called Totvel. And what you see here is extinct men besides extinct animals in front of illustration of landscape. I would like to go further, to travel further with you to New York now. Here in New York, to the American Museum of Natural History. This picture is from 1963. What you see here, a man entered a diorama, busy with dabbing paint onto an illustration of high mountains. Exactly. He entered it. He is busy with dabbing this illustration with paint. The next, I would like to travel with you to the island of Lanzarote in 2021. This is called landscape painting, quarry, from 2021, exactly. Ist okay. Ein bisschen zurück. Okay, da, okay. Go. Läuft? Okay. Here you see a landscape again, because it's called landscape painting. In contrast to the New York Museum landscape painter, Julius von Bismarck doesn't create a picture of, but in the landscape. What he did here, you see it, he painted first the landscape white, and then he was over-painting it again with acrylics. You won't find a distinction between the illustration and the original anymore, because he paints the illustration right on top of the original landscape. Quite brutal. What Julius von Bismarck is doing here for the art of landscape painting, I'm trying to experiment for the art of landscape theater. And I call this trial co-producing reality. Here I travel with you to the volcanic island of Milos in Greece. It's spring 2023. And I have to say, when I look at this video now, I have the feeling Julius von Bismarck was already there. He did his work in here. Because, I mean, for me, it looks like totally painted. I'm just wondering, I guess acrylics, it's not acrylics, maybe it was not Julius von Bismarck, because it looks like natural color. Maybe even mineral colors, I don't know. And I think it's natural colors, yes. And here you can see this big red brush stroke. I call it a brush stroke. Anybody, any idea what it can be? It's called a pyroclastic flow. It's a movement from the fire. So once this pyroclastic flow was cooling down in a wave form. So somehow you will find this nice movement already in this landscape. Then I was wondering, why are there no spectators in this landscape? Because for me, it really looks like an amphitheater, isn't it? And then, exactly, so we go a little bit further down into this mine, and what I found there immediately, plenty of them, but this is the first one, this is a yellow, reddish, US-American performer. Very good in pushing and lifting movements. Then I went a little bit up again, and I found him. He is a 82 years old local called Mr. Manousos. He didn't believe me, the dancing caterpillars, I have to say. Because he said, you know, I'm born on this island and I'm not used to so much to contemporary dance and theater, but he came because he was really curious. And he came as a spectator, and then he stood with us as a spectating performer, because he said he liked it so very much how he perceived a landscape, which he knows very well, so differently during this landscape theater project. Okay, and our glance strolled further and got stuck at a fence. And yeah, watching at this fence, suddenly I understood why we had so little spectators in this amphitheater. Because this amphitheater seems to be a private one. It's run by Emery's. It's a mining company. And then we ask ourselves also to get footage for our landscape theater project. What exactly is supposed to be protected from unauthorized intrusion and unwanted glances? And it seems as if they, which is Emery, are protecting themselves and trying to avoid turning landscape theater into, not turning landscape into theater. Slow, slow, slow. Slow, slow, slow. No, it's fine. And further, and further. And this is the amphitheater on Milos, but it's not so important. And go further to the plateau. And now we find ourselves on this huge plateau, and we explore the landscape in all directions. And find a snake, second performer. Maybe it's the poisonous Milos viper, and it's winding across the path right in front of us. And I would say, if it's really as dangerous as they say, it's definitely too close. And this reminds me at Hans Thies Lehmann, our teacher in Gießen, at his statement. He was saying, unlike in theater, everything in landscape is always much too close or much too far away. So we sent our Athens-based dramaturg Ioana Valsamido back to Athens to buy a big bunch of binoculars. Okay. And here, so co-producing reality, as I called it, it's far easier than I thought. Here again, I find real theater. Milos' charm has, since a while, been discovered by Airbnb. And there is a real housing shortage on the island. And people usually don't rent to locals anymore, because if tourists pay 200 and very often even much more for a house or a flat, so they don't per night. So of course locals won't find houses anymore. And what they see now, exactly. So they observe it, and what they see now, exactly. And this is why we offered our binoculars to them to see simply more clear, even from a far distance. But the problem is you can't see it. But what they see now, if they look down, they really see red. In the ruins of this building, the only professional dancer and dance teacher on this island, among a population about 5,000, she dances against the fact that teachers like her can no longer afford housing. That teachers like her, at least during the season, have to live in caves, abandoned homesteads, or boathouses. Yeah, they really see red. We are aware that landscape theater is not providing a central perspective and a clear guidance, but a multiplication of personal views on a shared space. We think about offering suggestions for sharing a point of view. What you see here, this lady at the right-hand side, she's part of the audience. And somebody left this place before and handed the mobile frame over to her. So the frame is only standing when somebody is holding it. That means the situation only exists when somebody is willing to hold the frame, so to say, to speak out or to act out the invitation for sharing a view. And we put this mobile frame exactly on this hill because of the fact that it will be mined very soon as well. It belongs already also to emeries. And they will take very soon volcanic glass, bentonite, perlite, black obsidian, and in a very brutal way because the trucks are taking this material all day long. And it's also important to say, I think landscape is not a picturesque place. Because very often we think landscape is something picturesque, but I think it's not. Okay, and here we have a megaphone. We put it there. You can see for free use. But I have to say, almost nobody took it because the people on Milos, I don't know, I think they are afraid to speak out loud. They're afraid to speak out. There's plenty of problems, but it's... Yeah, and here, one thing for me is very clear. Landscape is not nature. It's a cultural concept. Here, and all landscape has already been always alienated by culture. And all landscape has already been alienated by economy. Here you see my dramaturg and me improvising with the caterpillars, our dancers, and the drilling machines.
Away. You are fired. Yes, now you are shutting up, right? Exactly.
Να φύγετε από τη σκηνή, παρακαλώ, έχετε απολυθεί όλοι.
You know what? I think they are striking.
Do you want me to ask them?
Yeah, please.
Η σκηνοθέτης ρωτάει αν κάνετε κάποιο είδους απεργία.
Can you translate this? Do you know what it means? I mean, are you able to translate it?
No. I think we have to be more precise in what we ask them.
If they are on strike.
Yes. Η σκηνοθέτης ρωτάει αν κάνετε απεργία. They ask back, what do you mean by strike?
Not fulfilling what I say.
Απεργία σημαίνει να μην κάνετε τη δουλειά που σας έχει ζητήσει.
Tell them they signed a contract. And this contract says, I'm doing whatever happens, what my boss is going to tell me.
Έχετε υπογράψει ένα συμβόλαιο και η σκηνοθέτης λέει ότι είστε υποχρεωμένοι να κάνετε αυτό που σας ζητάει.
And I just told them a few minutes ago.
Just a moment, 1 minute. She's talking. Yes?
I just told them a few minutes ago, all the yellow ones are fired. Just the two big ones, nice ones, which are doing a good job, they keep going. The other ones go.
Η σκηνοθέτης λέει ότι θα έχετε απολυθεί όλοι. Θα κρατήσει μόνο τις δύο κεντρικές μπαλαρίνες που είναι στο upper stage. Εσείς που είστε στο κάτω stage μπορείτε να φύγετε, να αποχωρήσετε, έχετε απολυθεί. They are saying that you are not the boss.
True. Okay, so here we have people looking in different directions, and of course they see different things, and of course they have different readings. Yeah, or the spectators. As a spectator, you are always part of what is happening, intentionally or unintentionally. And because you are in it yourself, time plays such an important role. It's not just the time you can read on a clock, it's the time of the respective events that matters. So the time to get from A to B, it's like different conditions, different duration. The time it takes for a landscape to become light, sunrise, and to become dark, sunset. There is no blackout in 0 seconds as in a landscape. The light situation, shade or brightly lit by the sun, determines at what time of the day you perform and where you perform. Heat or cold determines when you perform and for how long. And the nature of the landscape can also determine the duration of the event. So what I have to say, the unpredictable is one of the biggest players in landscape theater. And here we have Mr. Manousos again. You can say binoculars or not, landscape is never just the visible itself. It plays with a simultaneity on all levels. So it can be wind, temperature, humidity, directions, sun position, exhaustion. And landscape theater can reflect as a co-producer on reality, not only driven by nature, as we think, but by all human interventions, which are, for example, ourselves as the spectators, or also actors, coincidences like the tu-tu-tu-tu-tu-tu-tu of the drilling machines, the history inscribed in a landscape, and who is owning the landscape. Who has the key here? Okay, thank you very much. I think Olga is waiting for us. I don't know, or do we have still time? I think Olga is waiting already, right? Yeah, okay. So thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Super. Let me know when I can start.
Yeah. Hi, Olga. It's
Super.
very
Okay.
very nice to have you with
I will
us.
start sharing the screen. Just give me a second. Can you see it? Hello? Yes. Okay. So my name is Olga Tsvetkova, and I'm a choreographer and curator. And recently I opened a new dance academy in St. Petersburg, which is an educational program for 1 year. And of course, talking about Russia today, it has a strong political problematics. And for instance, the opening of this academy for me was the biggest inspiration to keep going, because my main idea was to keep contact with European Dance Network. So by opening this academy, my interest was to keep the cultural connections alive in time of a war and in time of apocalyptic things, which is actually an issue, because a lot of artists and choreographers in Moscow, they cannot keep working, they cannot continue their artistic practice, because right now it's two artists, it's two female artists, like theater maker and dramaturge, they're in a prison because of artistic works. So actually for us today is the only possibility to keep working is to go away from Moscow. So I moved from Moscow to St. Petersburg, And my wish was to keep helping people who cannot leave the country. It's a lot of artists who have sick parents or just no money or no connection in Europe, so they're stuck in the country. So because I'm always focused on minorities, my wish was to help those choreographers continue their artistic practice and education. So the opening of this program helped me to maintain the connection. So I'm checking over embassies, over cultural institutes, European ones, which are still open in St. Petersburg. And together with them, we are making somehow kind of a possibility for European choreographers to teach in Russia. And of course, it depends on the country and on specific choreographer to choose to do it online or to travel to Petersburg. So this is shortly about my recent activities. And now I will switch also to the artistic routine outside of a city, of a theaters, because this is quite political situation as well for all freelance choreographers, because we are not in contact with state theaters, okay? So the only solution is actually to go outside and to work in nature. And the last work that I was busy is 2 years in a row, it's a Swan Lake ballet. This is quite interesting example, because Swan Lake is the only one ballet in Russia which is goes much far than just a classical choreography. Somehow it became a social cultural myth, because during 1991 putsch, it's the only ballet that was broadcasting on all TV stations. Because it was no news, no for citizenship, it was completely unclear what's happening in the country. And because of a ballet which was broadcasted in the OTV channel, it became a symbol of change, of switch of a government. And after actually this ballet was linked directly with the death of political leaders. And today, for Russian choreographers, this ballet is also kind of a tool or an artistic weapon for metaphysical change. And a lot of my friends during the wartime continuing staging only this ballet. So this is kind of also a gesture, artistic gesture as a protest. So the idea is to keep staging the ballet as long as the political situation will change. I mean, so and talking about my own practice, I was staging Swan Lake twice in 22 and in this year as well, 23. And the main focus was landscape of villages. So my interest was to walk the classical choreography of Petipa to the forests and lakes. And somehow one of my main issue was also to bring back the dramatic final, what was in narration of a Swan Lake before Soviet time. Because during the Soviet time, the ballet lost its tragic final and became kind of a positive end. So yeah, I was bringing this tragic end back, and my interest was also to walk the ballet towards, to bring it closer towards the ritual, towards the shamanistic side, towards the metaphysical dimension. And the audience, as you can see on the picture, was sitting outside. It's a kind of old electrostations, what you can see, water electrostations, what was turned into the theaters. So that's also one of the possibilities today to avoid state theaters and institutions, is to go to the villages and small theaters and see how you can work there. And my interest is also to allow the audience to have a different perspective on nature. So the idea to use it as a kind of ready-made scenography. So I'm not adding anything additional to the landscape. I'm just like putting there the composition or choreography, and because of a water or because of a forest, it somehow becomes by itself a ready-made scenography. So this is shortly about my activities as a choreographer and curator today, and also maybe coming back to the program, the dance program that I'm opening. I just recently opened in St. Petersburg. For me, it's also a big interest how to help young choreographers, young dance makers to continue their practice in a time when we have a great censorship. So the art becomes not only the territory of research, but also the territory of expressions. And because right now the theater and dramaturgy, I mean, the word was many words were prohibited, and now like all artists whose practice is connected with the verbal expression and writing is completely cancelled. So the only possibilities what we have left right now inside the country is dance and music. Because these both types of art are more abstract, but at the same time, of course, quite concrete. This is what we have left now. And because the theater is gone today, I mean a contemporary theater, which expressing and talking about today, dance, contemporary dance becoming the only territory left to continue expressing your disagreement with the political situation. And now it's actually quite interesting how artists who are still who decided to stay inside the country, using it as a quite complicated organized tool. Because, for instance, what you can see on the picture, the performance, what I was staging in 2021, it was Rite of Spring. I had a scenography and a costume design. What you can see, what all the hands of the dancers were painted with a red color. So for me, for instance, to show this type of piece today will be quite dangerous. So it's also interesting how many artists had the intuition 2 years ago or 3 years ago what will happen in summer, in February also 22. So somehow I will end my speech on this connection that we have now between Russian and Ukrainian choreographers, because when I was a curator of a big art institution in Moscow, before the war, 3 years ago, I invited Ukrainian choreographer Olga Dukhovna to stage a Swan Lake piece in Moscow. And the results actually were quite interesting because, of course, she could not do it anymore as soon as the war started. But she continued traveling with her own solo piece, Swan Lake, what was a research for the big production in Moscow. And actually in her solo piece, what she was presenting recently in Airwaves also, she is talking directly about the political situation between our countries. So I find it's quite strong that both Ukrainian and Russian choreographers who are familiar with the political context of Swan Lake keeping staging this piece. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Olga. That's very courageous. Also, we give you first of all a lot of strength and luck that the situation changes soon and that work is possible. And in the meantime, all the best wishes from us all to keep on going. And I would like to open the question round. If anyone has questions to Olga.
I'm afraid what I didn't hear well. So if Michael maybe can repeat. Super.
Anyone wants to ask something?
Olga, how public is this Academy of New Dance in St. Petersburg? Is it known?
Is it known? What was the question? Your connection is also unstable, so I heard only the first phrase. What did I understand well? What the academy is known for public? It got open 1 week ago, so it's already quite known for embassies and cultural centers, and slowly, of course, it's getting more well known among professionals. And talking about public, I think we will get closer to it as soon as we start sharing the presentations of the students, and also as soon as one choreographer from Holland will travel to Petersburg and stage a small work on students. So of course we will share it with the public. But it's a question for us, of course, in which theaters we will do it, or we will go outside to the city landscapes.
How do you do the funding of your academy or your productions?
It's being funded only by students, because we don't want, of course, to have any connections with the state institutions or the governmental money.
The students of the academy, do they need to fear to be stigmatized since they get involved in a private initiative for performing arts and dance?
Actually, on the level of audition, we were quite open, and it's written on our website what the program of academy is alternative. So it's not repeating the kind of subjects which you can get in governmental higher institutions. So my wish was to bring to the educational such disciplines which is absent in Russia completely. So it's a complete alternative program. So students are quite aware of it, and also it's quite transparent what I let them know what the experimental group. So actually, of course, we will have an evaluation in the end of a year to see what worked for them and what didn't.
And how are you supported by the society, or do you have partners who support you or make co-production?
Right now, the only co-production what we're gonna have is a Baikal Lake with a local shaman. And also talking about support, right now we're in connection with Goethe Institute, with Pro Helvetia Switzerland, with French Institute. So we are waiting for the we applied for money to support European choreographers, the fee or the traveling, but we will get an answer in 2-3 months. So the only cooperation that we have is actually mostly with embassies.
is not a danger that the Russian government then is trying to fight you if you because of the conflict in the moment, if you get in contact with Western institutions?
I guess if I would open this program today in Moscow, it will be closed the next day. But because I do it in St. Petersburg, this territory is not that well tracked. Like we're not tracking it well right now. And I guess it's not that important for them what is happening outside of Moscow. So, but of course, in time of the opening of this institution, I was aware and ready that it will be closed any moment, but it didn't stop me. Thank you so much. Thanks.
topic at this conference. We are going on with a panel discussion about VR and AI, the future of greener touring. And I'm standing here with Robin Jonsson, and we will also hear a presentation from Serena Tabacci. But starting out, I will give the floor to Robin Jonsson, who is a choreographer, producer, and sound artist who's been touring dance production since 2006. He has been studied dance at Parts in Brussels, but is currently based in Stockholm. Robin has extensive experience in incorporating advanced digital technology into performing arts processes, from robotics to VR in the borderland between physical and digital environment. So, Robin, please take us on a ride.
Thank you. Yeah, so Peter just said this, and this image was made with AI, and I kind of like it because it's really not me, and I look so happy here. So, but yeah, so I'm a choreographer. I went to ballet school. I went to Parts, so that's sort of where I come from. That's my education. That's where that's my passion. Back in the day, we're gonna go into VR and pros and cons with VR, but I'm gonna explain to you how I ended up here. So as a kid, I was a gamer, but I started dancing, and I kind of missed. I missed dancing for a gamer. Like dancing was kind of a bit, how to say, you could call it elitistic or just high culture, fine culture. Like it was very abstract. I didn't understand it, so I missed a language that was for me, for a gamer. So I did a piece based on this, from this old computer game called Street Fighter 2, which is amazing. And the movements are amazing. So we would just imitate these guys super thoroughly. And dancers fit this very well because we're so good at imitating, we're so good with our bodies. So this was great fun. Yeah. I mean, so we would literally sort of do these kind of things and just jump, and like our thighs would collapse with cramp because it's so low. So that was great fun, and I noticed already then that there was another kind of audience than the regular dance audience, because I would have mom and dads would bring their boys and just sort of, this is like they'd never seen dance. And sort of they was just attracted to this field. And yeah, my motivation and sort of vision is like to sort of have fun with dance, to develop dance, to find new tools for dance, to present dance in new contexts, and also to sort of appropriate advanced digital technology in the name of dance. Not in the name of technology, but like how can dance benefit from this? How can we use this? How can we own this? And so I started computer games, and then I went into robots, so small, tiny, very cute, adorable little robots who are very good dancers, very smooth dancers, so they can also keep an eye contact, interact and stuff. And then the pandemic came, and then with the same company I work with robots, we started some experiments with VR, with virtual reality. I think some of you have some kind of idea of VR, but I will treat you as if you have no idea. So basically, in VR, when you have a Peter, we will do a tiny little demonstration. Just it's very hard to explain. You won't even get it without being in it, actually. But the thing is, it's immersive. So when you take it on, you're in totally like a three-dimensional interactive world. You're really somewhere else, and you have a body. So does everyone else. And it's very, very interactive. It's sort of based on interactivity. So it reminds us a lot of a game. And how I work with VR, VR means many different things for different people. What I mean is you're in a kind of digital world. It's not a 360 filming or something. It's more like being in a computer game in a way. The dancer who's here is Annika Edström Kavaji. She has a motion capture suit and headset. And the audiences are all wearing headsets. So this is Nia, who we will meet later. So this is her in VR, and this is her in reality. And motion capture is a technology so that your body, the body of the dancer, is rendered, as it's called, in virtual reality in real time. So she has many, many sensors on her body. Wait. No, I'll show you later. Yeah, so she has many sensors, and this is sort of simulated in a virtual world. And I just want to point this out because it's become really the main thing that I do the last couple of years. So I did Alone Together with Norland Sopran and others, which was the first piece. It was quite experimental. And we realized, for example, you can reach a kind of new level of intimacy, which is anonymous between dancer and audience member. Then I did Slumberland with Bombina Bombas, which is a theater play, really. It's about insomnia. Then we did a nightclub in VR, and now lately I did Get Real, which is a hybrid show. So it's there's one group of audience in VR, one group of audience outside of VR watching people in VR, and then they switch. And then I did a lot of sort of pop-up stuff, which is outside the dance context, so museums and libraries and conferences, etc. And now in 2 months I have a premiere of Newcomers, which is for 12 to 16-year-olds, and it's sort of focused around bodily consent, like consent about your body and touching each other or not. So I was asked to talk about this, the pros and cons of VR, and the pro list is long, but maybe we can talk about it more later. I mean, I just keep on thinking about more and more stuff, and soon we're gonna show you what this is. So, I mean, my sort of main motivation is what it does artistically, like, because it's fun, it's sort of fantastical, like in the way that, like, you can look like a dragon, or you can fly, or you can be on the moon, or you can, like, it's sort of very, it opens up to a very, to use your imagination in that way. You look like someone else, so you have the body of an avatar, you, the performer, and the audience, so you can look like a bear, or like a koala, or like a string man, or be invisible, or whatever. Yeah, I can also create new kinds of experience. Like, I can have my audience fly. I can shrink them to this size. They can walk in the ceiling. They can create fire. Like, it's kind of like I can give the audience new capacities. It also allows me to explore sort of new topics that I wouldn't be able to explore without VR. For example, virtual intimacy, like how willing are you to engage intimately with an anonymous dancer or another audience member in another city, for example. Because that's something we did with Alone Together. We had audiences in real time in 7 cities at the same time. So you would be here, or like you would be in Malmö, you would meet someone in Umeå, and there you would sort of interact a bit, even intimately, and you would have no idea who this person is, and you would never meet in real life. So that's also, in terms of sustainability, it's amazing, because yeah, we can travel way less. Sometimes we just send away the headsets, so the audience wear them. Sometimes we send away one technician. So we can travel less, and we can have audience members at different venues meeting at the same time. And they don't need to be in the same house. Also for us as a crew, it's amazing because I could rehearse from home, or a dancer who lives in Oslo could rehearse in Oslo while I'm in Stockholm, etc. So we can also share work leader responsibilities and dancer responsibilities. And also I can literally see my kids much more. I travel way less, which is amazing, which is great. Yeah, also, yeah, like as I said, we can travel to more countries. It appeals to another kind of audience, maybe a more digital audience, a younger audience, but not only. Like we really have loads and loads of people who come home and never seen dance, but they're sort of attracted to the VR or to the robots or to the venue. And of course, it sort of implies new kind of collaborators, like researchers, scientists, roboticists, developers, designers, and stuff. And the cons is, of course, a lack of access to this technology because it's expensive. It's a lack of knowledge how to use it. It's also a lack of internet connections because you need an internet connection. it's a big sort of, I think, what could become a really big problem is a lack of ownership of platforms, because we don't own our platforms. So now we're performing in using MetaQuest 2, like what used to be Facebook. So they're like literally owning this whole thing. So I mean, like they're in control of the connecting network, which is, it works fine for now. And some possible obstacles is, I mean, this is kind of what I'm guessing and I'm sometimes sensing, but no one is telling me. But it's a fear of the new or of the digital, and a kind of technological conservatism in the performing arts field, that like we don't do that. That's not dance, or dance should be the body, or theater should be this or that. And also lack of technical education, which I think the schools should improve on. Like, I think they should teach us more about maybe collaborating with engineers or with programmers. I like they should sort of open these doors a bit more. And also a big obstacle that was clearly seen during the pandemic is that, I mean, then we had to like switch from one thing to the next and become digital. And we are literally in like step one, like we don't know anything. It's really underdeveloped. So if you start saying like, this sucks, this is bad, then we won't reach any kind of development at all. So like we need to be patient and let this develop. Because for example, music are like light years ahead of us. They're so thoroughly digital in their processes, and performing arts is really not. So now we will, in a moment, show this. This is Nia, who's now in Stockholm with her motion capture suit and headset, and she will meet Peter. So this is her. I'm just showing you so you kind of, I'm trying to explain the technical setup. For you, that's what she's doing basically. So she has a router and a computer there. Sometimes technology doesn't work, so that's a big negative. Vad sa du? Inte än. In the show, you wouldn't actually see this. You would be here. Yeah, this is part of working with technology. So this is what Peter sees. So in the last show we made, like there is also an audience group actually here watching people doing this interaction. But they don't see this yet. Thank you, Nia, who's not here, which is also a weird thing. Of course, negative in a way when performing online, because you're literally like click and you're somewhere else. It can be really nice for your family life, but it's also just, you don't have this sort of, you know, the, how do you say in English, the mingling before and after a show, which I think is really important. But I always ask local people to sort of do it for me to get a sort of sense. But I think I'm done for now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robin. That was inspiring, being part of a digital world this morning. I have so many questions, but I will hand over the presentation to Serena, who will talk a little bit more about a different form of digital world. Serena Tabacci is an entrepreneur, curator, and writer with a background in performing arts. She has worked at Tate Modern and is a co-founder and director of MOCDA, the Museum of Contemporary Digital Art. Serena is also an ambassador for diversity and inclusion in the Blockchain Game Alliance. She is currently focusing on how to curate digital art exhibitions online and in museum and galleries. So, Serena, please give us some thoughts and, yeah, your presentation.
Can you hear me okay? Test, test. All good? Okay.
Sorry, just a second.
No worries. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I'll do a quick introduction about myself and my work, and then I will share some projects I had the pleasure to work for, and some of the interactions and apps I managed to find, of productions I created. Okay, I still have some issues with the audio. I can hear my voice coming back, but I'll try to carry on. Okay, so my experience has been primarily in the development of digital art in collaborations with artists that create moving image work, mainly. That is video art, but also 3D works and the development of Web3 applications in relation to what's been very popular in recent years around the blockchain technology. I work with museums, institutions, private collections and galleries to develop projects that can be viewed in physical locations, but also through different applications such as the metaverse, so-called virtual space, where you can enter as an avatar, but also as a spectator of something that happens online. So I had good and bad experiences about those developments, and some things that worked really well, some others that could be corrected, and many lessons can be learned from what is the realm of virtual technologies and how they are being applied to performing arts, for example. So I will start by sharing my screen and talk to you about some projects I worked on for mainly museums. So let me know if you see my screen. Okay, I hope you see my screen. So these you probably have seen in the past. It's been very famous online. It's a work by Rafika Nadal that is being created through the use of algorithms created by NVIDIA, which is a software house company in the US that has provided the artists with a set of machine learning and AI tools to develop a work that is dynamic. Now, what is interesting about this specific work, it was exhibited in Rome for the first time on a massive LED wall. And what people have experienced is the, I would say, a theatrical way of enjoying a work of art, which is not in a very participatory way. So you're pretty much holding your phone like the lady in this picture is doing, and sharing the content of the visual work through your social media. And that's how you are participating in that work. So very interesting from a technical standpoint, as this is a work that has created a new aesthetic in digital art. However, the interaction in my with all respect, is quite limiting and limited also by the architecture of the room, even though the LED wall was really, really wide. Now, another example by the same artist in a different location, this is the courtyard of Palazzo Strozzi in Florence, which is one of the most known Renaissance venue, still intact from back in the days. And this is a performance that was happening right in front of the work, and it was communicating with the work. That means it was a kind of action reaction from the production of the work that you could see again on a LED wall, but also the actors that were performing at the input into the work and other way around. So it was an interactive response that you could have through the use of technologies. Now, this was also streamed online, so people could see it and participate in from the location in Florence, in Italy, but they could also enjoy it online. So to me, this is kind of like next level of engagement you could have with a work of art that is mainly created for the screen. Now, digital art has been around for a long time, and I wanted to bring to your attention this work in terms of talking about sustainability as well, and the merging of technologies with solutions that can aim to bridge, what we think is very high consumption, but at the same time can be very sustainable if used in a mindful way. Now, this is Namjoon Paik TV Garden, and that's a work installation that was one of the first of its kind to introduce the concept of allowing nature to be within physical TVs back in the days and other way around. So I think this kind of sense of not creating barriers has been around for a long time, but how it's been integrated, I believe, there's still room for improvement, but it's just a historical reference that I wish to bring to the table, just to think about how artists have been perceiving these concepts and bringing it into their work. Now, something that I think it's been quite interesting to watch was the experiment done by Krista Kim, who's a LA-based artist that was born in Korea and moved to the States years ago, who has created and is still developing a metaverse space that is incorporating this sense of nature and mindfulness in a virtual environment. So what Namjoon Paik did back in the days now is kind of like introduced in the so-called metaverse, which is a virtual environment you can enter through a VR set, for example, or simply by using your phone or any screen device, where you can navigate through this new world that Krista Kim has created that is resembling the Bronx in the US, in New York, but at the same time is introducing new elements for encouraging the new society, the future society, to not just think about technologies and digital in a way that is, detached from nature and from our way of living a healthy life. So by introducing the shades of colors and more green areas in this virtual environment, she redesigned the Bronx as a place where you could live through mindfulness and through a new lifestyle that is meant to be drawn upon humans and their needs, rather than, technologies taking over and kind of like destabilizing our way of living. Now, I wish to bring to the conversation also experiences that have been done in a more performative way. This is an Italian artist called Fabio Giampietro that I had the pleasure to curate in a recent exhibition about the metaverse, or at least an hypothesis of metaverse, where a swing was created, and to activate the work, you had to actively go on the swing and start moving. And then as soon as the movement was happening, it was triggering a camera that was generating there and then a work of art that was designed by the artist, where you could immerse yourself. So this is a very simple example of how you can create an interaction between the public, even though it's, just for the one member of the audience. The others can watch the experience or can participate one at a time, but where you could physically enter into something that is created by you. So it's like the artist is putting all their tables they have created, but that's you that activate the work and can decide, depending on the movement you are creating, which work will be shown in front of you and at what speed you will enter into this virtual environment. So that was a very well done experiment, I believe, very simple, but also very engaging. Now, this is a different project that only happened online, but it's very interesting to me and talks to the theme of today, because it refers to performing arts and to how, again, nature and technology will coexist in a future where not only actors, but robots that will remind of human actors will act on stage in a possible future. Now, I wish to show you a video. Let me know if you're seeing it. Do you see the video? No? Okay. Give me one moment. I need to share a different page. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, one moment. You see the video now? Okay. So I'm just playing it from the start. I hope you can see it. So in this artwork created by Giuseppe Lo Schiavo, there are a number of performers that are dancing on stage, as you can see. There's also audio, but I don't know if you can hear it. So the act is divided in 3 different scenes, and everyone is sort of a reminiscence of a work of art or something that we've seen in the past. So we see here a picture of the well-known CryptoPunks, but in a complete different style, like they were, some god from the past that get destroyed, and then they can recreate a new history. So to me, this performance is quite interesting, not just because the use of 3D and cinematic experience was recreated, but also for the themes that the artist wants to share in a future where we have the opportunity to teach those robots, or to decide what to remember and in what kind of history will be recreated in the future. So this work, for example, was also certified through NFT technology, and it became a work of art collected digitally. Even if that may not seem important to you, it's kind of a milestone for artists creating digitally that could, in a way, and for the first time, create a video work that is also performance that could be sold and collected and stored and potentially, you know, exhibited in venues and enjoyed online by a number of people. So that's quite an interesting milestone that was achieved in the digital art field, and that was created back in 2021, also during the pandemic, when most people didn't go to the theater because they couldn't really. And the artist wanted to share this little performance work as well to kind of regain the enjoyment of sharing a performance together, but through a digital, in a digital way. Okay, back on. Now, I also want to talk about another project I worked on, which again, let's see. It's done by another artist called Alex Braga, but I don't find the link. Give me one moment. Not so easy to go back and forth, but I will find it in a second. It's a work, well, I will describe it to you because I don't find it now. But it was a work that had a piano where people could interact with the piano, and the movement of people in the room was changing the shape of what they could see. So there was a camera, a virtual camera, that was capturing your movement, creating your performance. So in this case, as opposed to the swing, you would be an actor enacting the performance and creating a virtual work of art that was also creating a dialogue with you and the rest of the public. This dialogue was then converted into music played by a piano. So this performance was quite interesting because it was kind of putting together music, a visual experience, but also a type of engagement where you could have different people not being, you know, seated, but acting in the performance in itself. The sound and the visual were also created there and then through the use of algorithmic AI that the artist generated beforehand. So every show was different. There was no repetition in what it was enjoyed in the space. And also this music was live streamed. So there was an online channel where people could enjoy just the live stream of the performance. They couldn't really see it because you needed to be present in the room, but you could participate in a way by listening to it. So those are kind of experiences, I think, where the use of technology was done in a way where barriers were often taken down by allowing people to participate in without wearing so much technology on yourself. Like we've seen Krista Kim's, for example, performance with the VR, but at the same time, you could enjoy without, you know, having wearables on you. So my takeaways from this conversation is about thinking about which technology is best used in which environment and what kind of target audience you have to create works that could be meaningful within the space and can be also sustainable in the future. Because another important topic is about archiving those works and keeping them lasting long enough so that others can enjoy them in the future. There's also two other projects that I think are very interesting that I wanted to point out. These are two UK-based productions. One is called Punch Drunk. They've done a collaboration with Samsung a few years back when, again, through the use of VR, they created a performance where people could collaborate together in the creation of the narrative. And another interesting production was done by Blast Theory, which created an app just prior to the pandemic time called Karen, where you had this virtual assistant or life coach that was calling you on your phone every now and then and was creating an interaction, quite intimate interaction between you and a virtual assistant that was actually an actor using an app to create the narrative. So I think those kind of practices have been widely used in the field of performing arts. But what's interesting to me is not just that things will become way more sustainable in the future, is also that Web3 technologies are allowing those moments that are often very ethereal and can get lost to stay on, to be preserved, to be archived, and to be enjoyed and distributed via the web in a way that is definitely way more accessible than it used to be in the past. Again, within my experience, I had the opportunity to co-found a museum that is looking to preserve works of art created digitally and creating also infrastructure that can host those works. As often, physical places cannot really host data or exhibit as many works. So we're thinking, what's the best way to create online environments? How are we navigating them and how are we making them accessible? So that's our current challenge, and we're working with teams that are international to create these kind of opportunities for people to create interaction and to enjoy visual works, but not only, also sound and performance-based work. So that's what we're currently working on. And I hope my experiences in working with museums and artists were useful for you to think about how artists are approaching digital art in this sense.
Thank you, Serena, very much. I would start with the question back to you. You talked about NVIDIA as a technical company that's been co-producing pieces of work, but I'm interested in your thoughts about funding in general. Do you see new ways of finding money and also new ways of collaborating that's mainly coming out of the new digital environment?
That's a very good question. Now, in my experience, and that's what I can talk about, we had funding in the past from, for example, DAO organizations. What is a DAO? A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. That means that a group of people come together, create a set of rules they want to go by, and also create fundraising opportunities for projects that they wish to see realized. So one of these DAO was called Decentraland, and that was a virtual world that still exists based on Web3 technologies that gave us a grant of $30,000 to create a set of exhibitions to inform the public about digital art created by a number of artists, whether it was generative or 3D or other kind of works. And we created a number of happenings and show tours inside the metaverse. Now, those kind of technologies are less, or virtual worlds are less popular right now, simply because we came back to life and we are, you know, in more physical locations nowadays, but that was a way to fundraise. There are a number of organizations that used to be, you know, quite local, regional, that have now extended on a global scale, that are also functioning as DAO organizations. So it's similar to what used to be kind of like the Kickstarter fundraising, but essentially we managed to receive funding from those kind of organizations. Another way is through grants application. Nothing new, but still works. And also sponsors. In some cases, we had some sponsors, technical sponsors primarily, that were quite supportive with us.
Thank you. Robin, I'm curious about...
I don't hear anymore. Sorry.
Sorry, I mute you. So I'm asking a question to Robin about your thoughts about the expectations from an audience coming from live performance art coming into a digital domain. What's your thoughts about that?
Expectations from a live audience coming into these kind of works. Often it's really quite just positive, and often I feel that it's quite another kind of discourse. So often it's like, it's not the regular, you know, if I generalize, if I really exaggerate in contemporary dance, you know, you have a bit more like, oh, that's interesting, and like maybe a bit more theoretical, but here it's more like, that's a nice experience, I've never done this before. Like, it's more about a sort of talking about a sort of fantastical experience rather than sort of being this it's just really something else, you know. It's like, it's still, the field is kind of young, and it can be very different when presenting to people who are already working digitally. Like, then it's sort of for granted, but it's still a bit the pleasure of the new, let's say.
So would you say that if you look at the shows that you have been doing, is the audience mostly new, or is it the same audience that you met when you made more of a standard dance performances?
It's kind of really mixed. I mean, because it's still in the same venues, and I mean, the venues are doing the main part of the promotional work. But still, I mean, there is a lot of audiences who have not seen dance, and of course, then when I do, like I did, it's difficult to explain, but we had like a night of culture in Stockholm, and I'm working in a former like a cruise ship house, a kind of new culture house, and there I had like 350 people, and most of them had never seen dance, and just came to see the VR. So it really depends on the venue, but yeah, it's both.
Another question for you, Robin, is, I mean, you are stepping into new territory with this VR dance, and could you please tell us a little bit more about what are expected from the dancers stepping into a environment that's new? Do you search for VR dancers, or do you search for just dancers that want to learn VR, or?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning there were no VR dancers, but now there are. So I mean, it is a skill. It's a skill to. I mean, first of all, you need some technical. You need to be able to work technically. Like, you need to troubleshoot. Like, maybe your one sensor is off, meaning your leg comes like this during a show, and you kind of have to fix the sensor yourself. So it's like a technical responsibility. But also it's a way of moving because you have a new body. So it's like there's a tiny delay, but it's also not exactly your body. It's just almost your body. So it's really kind of another, slightly a different relationship to your body. And then just knowing, like, because we don't see depth so well in VR, and the colors are more they're not as significant as in reality. So if I would be in a dark mount, like let's say dark, and the ground's dark, and I have dark pants in VR, then they wouldn't see my dance as well. So it's like a kind of knowledge of how VR works, or like visually, like what you see in when, and sort of yeah, it's like how VR works visually. And also it's just getting used to being in VR a lot, because it can be quite demanding.
But can you see within the VR who's actually dancing? Can you recognize the movement?
Yeah, actually, we had a funny this Slumberland piece about insomnia that I did it with a theater group in Malmö, and we were two directors, one in Malmö, one in Stockholm, and then we had two dancers, one in Malmö and one in Stockholm. And eventually, and the performance looked identical, and they performed together. So eventually, I did learn who was who by their body language, but it took a while. But the two performers never met until the premiere, so they only knew each other in VR, but sort of physically in VR for a long time. So they only got to know each other virtually, let's say.
You mentioned, Robin, that your work is in a way owned by Meta. So I'm curious, Serena, about your thoughts about IP or intellectual properties, and how to protect both the design and the piece itself. I know that you have been working a lot with the NFT and the blockchain technology. Could you share your thoughts about how do we preserve that integrity of the artist in the digital world?
Very challenging question and topic. So there are currently very few regulations that have been applied in the sense of protecting something that is often also created in collaboration with AI, which is a huge topic. We've seen these in the US being slightly more regulated over Europe. So the reason I would say a way right now to detect in what kind of percentage a work of art should be attributed to an artist, and how much it should go, for example, towards whoever created a software that's been used for the, to elaborate a work of art. So, of course, the moral rights will always stay with the artist and the creator. So even if you're using different tools, but you are the person who are putting the creative idea together and crafting it in something that could also be sold as an NFT, if we're talking about video-based or image-based work, or holograms, for example, as well. But the certificate is only a certificate. I mean, it certifies that the work is being created by you. So through an hash, which is a string of code made of numbers and letters, you can identify that you, as a creator, have created that work at a certain point in time through the timestamp that you will find on the blockchain. And that's a public ledger. That means anybody can see that information, and it cannot be altered because it's a distributed system, so it's not centralized. So I cannot go and change the information once it's been added onto this archive. However, nobody would be able to identify if, for example, I've taken a file from your computer, for example, and I've made myself the author of that specific work. So there's no way to protect any digital file from that. And another issue I see is if I do take a work of art that already exists and I remix it or do a collaboration, we are currently not having digital tools able to detect, how many pixels or how many layers I've added compared to layers that pre-existed and were created by others. So there's been cases where, for example, artists have spotted their traits within others' work and, sort of raised a flag for that. But that's been, in the art world for a long time. So I think digital tools are making an advancement towards detecting a percentage of human creation or AI creation, but there's still a long way to go, and there are no yet regulations in terms of IP in the digital, unless you you can, of course, create an NFT, but also create a simple certificate to say, I'm the owner of this work.
Thank you. So our time is almost up, but I still would like to hear just a few words from you, Serena. This conference is in many ways connected to the sustainability about the arts, performing arts, and it would be interesting to hear from you how the digital domain is thinking about sustainability and also in the whole chain. Big question, sorry, maybe.
Yeah, big question, big question. I was actually talking about this yesterday because somebody mentioned to me the big sphere that maybe you've seen on Instagram, or maybe you happen to visit already in real life, that's been done in LA, I believe, or Las Vegas, in the US, which is this massive dome made of LED walls, indoors and outdoors. And what I came to realize that there are more cooler for those LED walls that heat up so much. That to me is crazy to fund a project that is so unsustainable. Even if it's mind-blowing, of course it's beautiful, but it's completely unsustainable. And I believe with digital, there's so many things that have been achieved that can be made way more sustainable rather than creating something that is, of course, an exercise of aesthetics, but at the same time, not really ecological at all. So in that sense, what I can say is that the technologies such as Ethereum and other blockchain that are currently used to preserve art and certify art, they were very polluting in the past, meaning that mining a block, when we talk about digital currencies or we use certificates to create those certificate of authenticity or any transaction we perform, every transaction was, was having an impact on the energy consumption. However, thankfully, there's been created a merge of those branches of archives. I mean, it's quite complicated, but I want to really put it simple. That has been reduced the impact of this technology down to more than 99%, which is good. Very good, because that means minting an NFT right now doesn't consume more than keeping your fridge on or turning on the light for a few hours. Of course, it has a minimum consumption that is necessary to just create that transaction and perform that transaction, but at least it's been cut down by over 99%. And I do believe that there's still a long way to go, and we're still seeing, things that are, having very high consumption and not really green. But at the same time, there's so much that we can do and enjoy through the use of distributed applications without, being present, travel, or, consume that much. So it's about how we use the technology that are available to us.
Thank you. So I don't know if we have time. No, we don't have any time. So then we have to thank you, Serena, thank you, Robin, and thank you for this.
Thank you.
some learnings and outcomes of the Rail2Dance project from the perspective of the partner organizations that were planning it all and making it happen. And I think that there is so much to cover. So I thought of dividing this conversation in a couple of blocks, and to start with very practical, on-the-ground kind of things that happened in your cities when you were experiencing the performers doing their job and interacting with the local communities and with the audiences in your own places. And then we will try to zoom it out a little bit to maybe come to some broader topics. That is, of course, part of this project. And I wanted to start with asking the partners, so and we'll get further to Anthony's mission and Peter's mission and Robin and his experience with VR traveling, touring through Rail2Dance. But I would like to start with asking you as local partners about your local experience of hosting the team, because you had a little bit different frameworks and it was organized differently in every situation. Practically, and there were different strategies of inserting the project into your local activities. So how was it for you on the ground? Did you feel any impact on your local community or situation? How was it? Was it the way you expected it to be? Was it completely different? Did you feel any change? Was it inspiring? Was it frustrating for you?
I can start. Well, we probably don't need to make a list of all the great expectations that we had. I just like to focus.
That would be lovely.
Oh, we will sit for a very long time here then. But I would really love to focus on the expectations and the outcome for the local dance communities and the local participants. In relation to the touring core teams and to the performers, because that is the most rewarding outcome from our perspective within Umeå and Malmö. So our expectations there were quite down to both share practices between the touring artists and the local dance communities, and audience-wise, of course, we were dance in places where dance is usually not very visible, but also to take back actually public spaces, for dance and experiences. So and these expectations, of course, also fulfilled in a nice way, but. What came out very differently was the outcome and the takeaway for the local performers and choreographers. So their feedback afterwards and also during the trip was very much focused on how different the experience is just to very simply leave the studio, because the most of the local dancers and dance students, they haven't been encountered audience beside or outside the safe black box and audience stage situation. So just to break this distance has been one of the major challenges, but also the most rewarding to realize that it's quite easy to connect just by switching places. I can probably stay there for this second, because we're so many to share.
Yeah, you can continue, Sabrina.
So I go a little bit back, because I'm the one who made this, who put the idea in the world. So when I got my first idea to have a Creative Europe project, I was really concentrating on stations, on mobility, on how to reach people. Then in 2018, I say often, we had here 8,000 Nazis walking in front of Mr. Karl Marx. And since then, we are also very aware that our extreme right wing in Chemnitz is not only in the somewhere, but they are here in present, and we see them every Monday walking around. This encouraged me even more to say, yes, we have to go out, we have to put something against it. And of course, we had big plans. Also, I always said to the partners, Chemnitz has to be big because we want to become culture capital. At that time, it was still a plan. Then it became a reality. And the reality has gone faster than we thought because it's taking all the capacities we have here. Suddenly there are 1,000 things going on. But we could match the core team with more activities, so the whole city was, let's say, there were different attractive points where you could see dance in public space, where you could participate. We failed in a way that our first project was to have local communities to be activated with welcome actions to go to the station for 1 or 2 days to welcome audience. I had planned to have several dancers in the company. They always want to choreograph, to make big things. I asked them really 9 months before, with whom would you like to work, with whom would you, and they had clear plans, they got the contract, everything, and at the end I found out they were relying that we organize these groups. So clear ballet dancers in a company, they have to mature a lot to be ready to go out for such projects. You have to be much more, they always want to be adult and to do everything by themselves and things, but when it comes to this point, we failed. But we did something, we went out and it was fantastic at the station that we were making actions, and suddenly there was a whole school class coming out of the train, and the teacher said, oh, we trained this morning a dance with the kids, let's do it. And we had a whole school group with 30 kids dancing in the station in public space, and they enjoyed it. And we said, okay, then let's go, let's invite you for the next performance here, and so they come to attend all the performance. But in concern of dancing in public space and for the core team, we saw that the work we did the last years brought a lot of people on the street to come and see them, and that you need to work constantly on this. And Chemnitz doesn't have a big local community in this thing. The good thing is that we start to build up a local community through the opera ballet school here. And again, it's the theater here. I prefer to have it from somewhere else. But this, we have to invest a lot of work also to have more capacities, to have more people, to bring them outside. So that's why we dream to have a big choreographic center.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being sincere also, because we're not only discussing what worked well and how wonderful things were, but also to exchange some doubts and maybe downfalls of what happened. So yeah, I encourage you to be open about it. And Nina?
Okay, yes, the journey started in Tampere, and the framework was Tanssivirtaa Tampereella Contemporary Dance Festival. So we had a program in the city, performances in the city surroundings, and Rail2Dance group was like a supplement for the performances. So it was planned to happen aside of the scheduled tour that we did through the city, and it was okay. I didn't have much expectations because it was the start of the journey, and the mini residency was only 3 days before that. So you didn't have time to search for the places, and on the other point, we had the program scheduled and we had to stick to that. But the cooperation with local artists was fruitful, and I think it gave us good seeds planted seeds for future projects in the city surroundings. So I feel that was the most important part in Tampere and also in Vaasa, where you have had bad weather, but also free hands within the places they had chosen. You had only half a day there, so it wasn't that much time to get to know the surroundings well. The huge disappointment was that we wasn't able to perform at the stations and in the trains, which was planned, which was our dream in the beginning. But I think we created more visibility in both in Tampere and in Vaasa because we didn't go to the small places without passing by people, because it's, for example, Vaasa is not passing by city, it's the end of the railway, so when the train comes, you get a bunch of people coming out of the train and then they are gone. So I think this was a better solution than what we dreamed of. Yeah, that was in Tampere and Vaasa.
Thank you.
I will go to the beginning, because we also had, Ljubljana was also the kickoff meeting. So the starting point was, I would say, quite successful. We had a lot of things going on, and also the artists, because it was in September, and the local artists actually were present at the workshops we organized. So they were really intrigued to follow. And I think they really enjoyed, and we actually, I think we did quite well kickoff meeting in Ljubljana. It was quite successful, and and then because the timetable changed, we had the ending of the Rail2Dance actually. So Rail2Dance ended in Ljubljana in the summertime, which is the high season. So I also changed the dates for our festival, which was then the whole festival was taking outside, and also in Maribor and Ljubljana. So for me, that was really challenging. And I need to say we were not successful with the workshops because none of the dancers were there in July. It is just, we just had tourists. So Ljubljana a really touristic city, so no one wants to be there. So we didn't have the workshops. That was unsuccessful. And also in Maribor, because there is just the festival going on. But I have really great responses from Maribor, and also I was really gladly surprised that the audience who actually were there, usually Maribor is a really deserted city, but at that time in summer, when the Lent Festival is going on, and also they were collaborating and advertising things, we had full bunch of people who are following all the performances. So I'm really glad that that happened, and it was really successful. In Ljubljana, we just had people going around. We had some followers, but not the dance community. Most of the dance community was not present. And this, I think, that is normal in the end of this, and they just want to have vacation. So yeah, so this is, I think it was quite important, and we were the only one who performed the performance on the train. So we even the railway company, they said, we will not give you the permit, but we don't mind if you do it. We just don't want our logo there, because that's something which is like political decision, because there are other options. So, and took the chance and we did it. And I think from Maribor to Ljubljana, the performance Alia did with Beno, it was quite nice. And I think we should try to do it more often.
Thank you. And we will move now to practicalities and like capacity building. But like Birgit wanted to add something about the digital experience and like part of Rail2Dance.
Yeah, because I think there's this perspective has been a bit missing in our short reporting, and since also the VR performance and the VR touring was initiated by us from Sweden, I think it's a kind of an interesting perspective about how mobility looks in the perspective of being present or being absent in the touring. Because I know that especially in the core team of the performance, there was a big question mark about, but what is this virtual reality dance making, or what does it has to do with dance in public spaces? But I think as we also experienced today, in the topics of if we're talking about dance, culture, theater and landscapes, but also virtual reality, everything is quite intertwined. And if we are talking about alternative mobility and sustainability, what we wanted to experience and to try is also, could we have a live experience by connecting the virtual reality to the performances and the performing in the public space. And we've been facing quite many technical problems during this touring. So I think we can be very honest about that. That was a major frustration about the VR activities, that the hiccups in the technical system, of course, slowed down and also made it not always as smooth as we had imagined. But I think for the people who were able to experience the short interactive and virtual encounters, they really realized that dance choreography doesn't need theater or a defined and safe space in the way that is, how it has been communicated for ages. So I think in that way it was both a very practical learning process, but also a good reminder of if we think alternative places and public space, the public space is not always this physical space.
I want also to add that we also have to educate and capacity building for not every dancer is in his mindset to go out on the street in public spaces. Yeah, some dancers prefer to really be in their box and to create their art in a safe surrounding. So also we do that for the last 6-7 years, that we train our company to go out. Even our White Swan, who does a classical White Swan, goes out in the public space and to find ways how to get out of this comfort zone also in a way. So I think also this is an experience for us also to give also dancers the chance to say, okay, it's not about some technical issues, but it's about being authentic, about being much more aware, what do I do there? Why am I here? What do I do? And to realize, even if they are sitting, we had it at the bus station, on the other side we had our homeless people, and they were coming every day to watch it. And they were coming every day. In the beginning they were laughing, and then they were encouraging, and then they were clapping, and they were with it. So also this, that you have this power also, it's a power you have, but you have to find yourself. So I think it was also very important as a capacity building for the dancers.
Just to pick up on tools and education, I think we're in such an interesting moment. I can only speak from the UK context, but what's happening now is a big decentralization, and we're asking the question of what does culture mean to you. And it's different for everyone. For somebody, it's like throwing darts, and for somebody, it's making some pottery. In a lot of dance education, we're still kind of teaching for a structure that I'd say existed 20 years ago, maybe. And the teaching and the curriculum's not really caught up with what's happening now or where things might go in the future. So a big part of my work is kind of advisory. So I work with a lot of training institutes to go, here's a lot of necessary tools for people. And part of that is about working in different contexts, working in public spaces, because I think the more we can start equipping people earlier in the journey, the more proficient and comfortable they're going to be later, and the quicker the quality is going to raise. And I think that's where this was useful as a thing, just to share a lot of knowledge widely, which, you know, we could have done more of, but.
Yeah, I have two questions concerning what has been said. The first maybe is that it's kind of repeating the question from the previous discussion, but still I never got the answer, so I want to try again. So we are talking about these encounters, and you are mentioning little examples of how people were reacting. And they feel like success because you are attracting attention, and like you're sitting that there is life appearing somewhere where it felt that there was no activity, no life, or no social interaction, right? And it feels like a successful moment in a journey. But the question is then, because when we're talking about sustainability, we need to think about some strategies, right, of how we work with that. So in your particular places, what did you learn about your audiences, about these people who you were interacting with, about your audiences to be something, like what did you learn that would encourage you to work differently with the audiences? Or like, did you find something that would push you to some new direction of working with the audience in the future? Because it feels that this tryout, the project as a tryout, is really like can be this base for some further steps in developing the audiences.
Yes, I think the repetition of performance interventions would be useful for our audiences in the street, and somehow the dance being part of society, being visible in the city surroundings and in the everyday life of people. So to find the ways how to be really present in the everyday life by repeating some patterns or some structures that we created, or the seeds that we were created.
For example, these tours that you were organizing in Tampere.
Yes.
Yeah, if you can just talk about more practical steps and things and maybe ideas that came along.
So for us, we have experienced two things. One is that we went in different areas of the city, which are very far away. And I don't know how you say this in Germany. You say Plattenbau. We have here, it's this cube houses, you know, from the GDR. But we have the biggest community here still being in East Germany like this. And we found out that very fast, there were some ladies who think they have to take care of this environment because it's where they have been living for 40 years or something. So they were coming expecting what we do, looking, they approved it, and then they not colonialized, but it was there, and so they were bringing the neighbors, they were bringing people there to watch, because suddenly this has become a part of their environment. This was very interesting. And we had the same in a park where we had some people together at 5 o'clock to drink the beer and having some comments and things. And the kids were following the dancers for 2 weeks, and then after they knew the choreography and everything, and they were blaming at the dancer if they left something out. But it made them very curious to start to be part of something like that. And this encouraged us very much. we are planning now to do something for the tramway. So for 24, we're going to have Tuesday on line 2, on Wednesday on line 4, performance with 2 or 3 dances in the tramway, just to get the people more to this art. The other thing I wanted to say, for 10 years, or not quite 10 years, but for several years, we are educating our administration, means starting from the police to all the institutions who are connected with giving permissions for such things, you know. So at the moment, if I call and say we want to do, oh, we know what you do, it's fine. But also before the festival, the same with the train, I had the firemen calling, I had the police calling, I have the Marktwesen, the people for the marketplace, and for the center where we were, all those people were once more calling to ask what are you doing and how is it and how and do you and things. But more you do, more it's acknowledged by the city, and also the politicians realizes it. And the last sentence, I made the Rathaus, how you say, the mayor, or town hall. I made a town hall this year to get the permission for what we did on the marketplace.
So this is very much about being persistent, in like this kind of presence, and it also is connected to, about this effort of being sustainable, in a way, being present and continue being present somewhere, so that people are becoming more aware of it and more get used to it. Like Birgit?
Well, a very simple reminder and outcome for how we use this project as a reminder for our own audience engagement is actually the most valuable encounters or feedback from audience is always when you have this personal meetings. Actually to put a greater impact and value in audience activities that are outside the performance. If we are talking about, we're working a lot with physical introductions and workshops, but to meet actually the artists both in different spaces for that, but also to put a stronger emphasis on meeting the artist outside artificial environment without the costume and in just because that's I think it's Oliver who talked about it, or no, it was Anthony who said yesterday it's a good moment just to realize it's just human beings encountering each other, and very often the distance is created by the props and costumes. So these are very close and personal encounters are actually a very great reminder to be much more on the same face-to-face level when you add activities for your audiences.
And also the duration of the interaction. So you are not there for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but you come back every day and you stay there for 2 hours or more.
After we tour all over the place, and after the shows, I always encourage our dancers just to keep present where they are, because people inevitably want to go and talk to them, and quite often people don't know what they want to say and just talk or cry or just go like something, which is wonderful, and that's the most life-affirming thing about it, and kind of goes there, it really works. But also you have to spend the time to make sure that the artists are comfortable with that they don't feel discomfort or the potential for violation, or even about understanding what it's all about, so they can talk about it, but also talk about it in a way that's not too academic, that's accessible. So I think you also need, as aside of all the physical practice and choreography, is just to make sure there's a good dialogue about what is this all about, so you can have that conversation on a one-to-one level.
And what were the things that you did not consider in advance that created obstacles in realizing what you were planning? Please.
I've got one that only occurred to me before. Access riders. I don't know if it's a familiar thing everywhere. Around the world, like, there's an increase in mental health crisis. There's a lot of people that have additional needs, and a really simple thing for a group of artists that haven't worked together before, or artists that do work together often, is just to have a little access rider that says, this is about me, this is the way I kind of exist in the world, here's some of my additional needs. You know, small things that just give people clues to have a better conversation with you, or to work in the right way, whether it's like, you know, I'm deaf in one ear, I can't really, you have to be in my vision for us to, for me to understand what you say, whatever it is. And maybe that's also a useful thing, just so you can all go, so here's something I should know about this person that I'm about to go on this adventure with. That might have been quite useful early on.
Yeah, any other responses? Because I think that a lot of, of frustration from the artists came also from the perspective of not being really clear about the city limitations and what is land restrictions, like what is allowed or what is not, and how all these things are communicated to them, and how we treat the very act of being in the public space. So, and I know that on an emotional level, there's been a lot of frustration on each location of how things were going on. So, yeah, what was this major gap in the expectations, and what was like then realized in practice?
So I'm very honest, but this is also because you are naive, because I'm honest, I'm working since now 25 years with dancers, and I have always also in the studio, we want to choreograph, we want to do ourselves, we would like to contribute more, especially when they get towards 30 and more, then they want to not be said everything and all this, and then I'm always naive to think, okay, there are people they want, so give them the opportunity, they can make their first steps. And I rely a lot on Anthony, because we experienced Anthony as a performer, his company, his work, how he has been working with our dancers. And so when we were in Ljubljana, I thought, oh great, look, they are on a good way, there are good tools, there are good material, there's good things. And but this is my naivety. I was thinking that they go back, encourage, and they work on this. We said, okay, they can have some more dancers to develop things, to go, to try out, to make and go for it. And then when we saw the output, there were lots of things, you know, there's no perfect organization, never. And it's always easy to say, yeah, we didn't get to hear this, we didn't get that, and this and this. But at the end of the day, mostly this is just to prevent yourself, when you're honest, to have not gone further. And this is what has disappointed me, that the dancers didn't go further to try out, because we could have stopped. If there was something, we say, okay, please, this is too much or something, or listen to us. And of course, we did mistakes. We did mistakes that we put some trust in a tour leader who had more interest to be much more a performer and a lonely performer in herself. But those are all things happens. We all have to be also, in a way, tolerant. It's an experiment. It didn't exist before in these things. There's no rules how to do it. We can only learn by doing it. But to be honest, for me, I wanted to have a little bit more creative output. For me, it was too much sitting on a comfort seat and to complain also sometimes. We invited Anla Batar for the workshops. They didn't attend. We did a hell of work behind. And for me, it's just next time to more go into who is this human being we're gonna try to reach, to get into this project, it's two things. Maybe it's also a generation. The new generation is not so curious anymore. The new generation is very fast, self-satisfied. You can blame me, you can beat me after, yeah? But this is what...
They will.
This is, you know, I'm in the age where I'm gonna step back now. I'm in the age where I say, okay, I've done enough. It's nearly 40 years, next year's 40 years I have been working for Germany, and I want to give it on, pass it on to the next generation. I want to give you all best possibilities to create your art, to go for it, to invent, to tell me that all what I have been doing was bullshit, and now you know what is going on, and you are the one to know. But I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that you have something burning in your side and you want to prove us that we are bullshit or that it's great or whatever. And it was so at the point there was much more, you know, playing the game for complaining for this and that. Of course, sometimes we do mistake, especially me when I work until 2 o'clock in the morning. But you know, this is the point for me.
Peter?
So, yeah, I'll follow that one.
It's getting hot.
But in a way, my thoughts are a bit connected to that, because I think it's very much connected to expectations that we talked about earlier also. That what is the signed contract between the people that are involved in the project? What am I anticipating that this person will actually do, and do they know what I'm expecting? I think that from a producer side, this project has been very challenging because of the shared leadership of both the project team and also the core team. And as a producer, we usually would like to know exactly what we are supposed to prepare. And there were so many different aspects of this project that wasn't super decided by someone to relate to. And therefore, you had that kind of thing going on in the room that weren't really someone taken care of and decided upon. And it can come to this point of just, is this, if we talked about the audience engagement, it's a different thing if we put up a sign that tomorrow at 2 o'clock we will do something at this specific site, or if we just pop up. That is two different ways of working, and it's much more easy to prepare everything if we have decided that we will be there and we will tell everyone and we will talk with all the people that are connected to that specific point. But we won't reach people in the same way by doing that as if we just pop up. And those are the kind of things that I think this project has been dealing with, and I think in a way that is super important to take back into the planning of a similar project, that we need to talk about things, we need to decide whether this is an open space where someone can do whatever they want, it's up to them to decide what they do, or if there is a purpose of being there and it's not something that you can either do or not. You're supposed to do it like this way. Just a comment.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of frustration also comes from things not being clarified to a certain extent from the very beginning, because when we're talking about such huge topics as slow touring, greener touring, mobility, public spaces, these are such huge concepts to unpack, and there are so many ways of dealing with that. And it feels that this period from the kickoff residency until the start of the tour could have been used very differently. And it starts before, of course, and it starts maybe on the level of like the partners discussing what's going to happen, then how we communicated to the artists through the open call, because in the artistic interviews I realized that people were like reading the open call note like in completely different way. It was completely not clear what they are supposed to do and what is supposed to happen, just because the openness of the process sometimes can be completely frustrating, and there should be some kind of guidelines and limitations, maybe a little bit more clear way. But I'm also thinking about this communication challenges that arise, and it's very much about communication between the partners and how then these processes communicated to the artist and how then the feedback loop is organized. And it feels that this process was not really in place in many ways. And I wonder what is the challenge in this? Because when we are talking about international collaboration, then we're also talking about some clash of infrastructures, communicative infrastructures and working cultures, and also like you have really different organizations and how things are working in one way and seem obvious, then are completely not obvious to others. So is it worth it? This kind of effort put in this communication, could it have been done in a smoother way? So what did you learn in this kind of capacity building communicative aspect of working together in between partners? Well, you want to start?
Okay, I think the thing that, yeah, it was worth it. It was an experience. It was challenging. But what I would really recommend, or it would be really better, that we know each other better. Also, all countries are different. And also the structures are different. So for me, it was, then we need to really precise the things. And also our expectations were really high, probably, at the beginning, and we thought it will be really easy. But we didn't, probably in each of the countries, all the rules and the permissions and all these things we didn't really know in advance when we were actually applying for the project. So all these things what we planned, traveling and performing on the transportation system, it didn't work when we started. So this was the things we need to really, I think we need to take back and say, okay, we didn't prepare for that. I think we as organizers. And also if you have a structure which is a bigger one and you don't have the connections with the artists you selected, it's also something completely different. Because for me, we are a small structure, and I had, our dancer is all the time connected with us. And it depends how you work and what kind of dancer you selected, if it is in your own country or it's someone distant. So actually it depends. And also what was really, for me, I realized, okay, my common sense is my common sense. And, you know, you don't go into fountains because that's respectful to the artist who did the fountain, and there are permissions. But in some of the countries, probably this is permitted, I don't know. But we didn't talk about all these permissions also. So this is something we need to take back and think about. That we need to prepare and know the countries with whom we are collaborating, and with the partners we need to discuss these things better. That's why also the outcome was not so successful, I think.
Well, I mean, first, I really like to strongly disagree with Sabrina, because I think all the artists who committed to this project, of course, they have an interest in working and collaborating both with each other, but also with the organizing teams. But I really think we need to go back to the beginning, where actually we, in our responsibility, defined the frame everybody worked together with, because it's not the organizers on one side and then the performers on the other side. It's a lot about communication, but also misunderstanding different terminologies. But in the very beginning, it's also about the challenges of this is a typical European collaboration project where you try to have a quite equal representation of all the countries. And there it already starts with the first challenge that of course you're combining a team of nearly total strangers. And of course that comes also with a challenge of where does this team gets the opportunity to build a community that can succeed during a very long touring process of 40 days. So I think it's also the question to ask, how do we think in terms of how should the work process look like to give the right to give the right resources to provide the tools, but also to have a stable team going on a tour for such a long time. So to have a longer start of kick of a residency, really to make it possible that the touring team can really feel as a team and not only working for a very long time, as we together decided to try what happens if these people are continuing to do some research in all of their home places, which is a very good thought. I also still strongly believe in this idea, but it's only working if you also still have the time for physical encounters to build a team. And this was really something that was lacking, and that is a great responsibility on our side to which kind of frame did we provide. And so I suppose that the commitment could be true to the project, but also that everybody in a touring community can be very supportive to each other. Of course, we know that if you're welcoming a company that has been working for a long time with each other, it's a completely different way of supporting each other on a tour. But if you don't know each other very well, of course, it's also taking a toll on how you share your creative ideas. So I think this has been slowing down the artistic process quite a lot, not to have had a very long, or not really very long, but a long enough kick-off process really to form a team and to work on the ideas, to have a safe base of material. I think it's a crucial point that created a lot of domino problems.
And also it was because this was first, when we planned it, like 2 years or something, it was a middle scale project. And then we had to diminish it to the small scale EU project. So we took some parts out of it. For example, one residency before the touring, one bigger residency, and then some action research time, and then the start of the journey. So I think that was crucial, and we didn't consider it deep enough at that point when we just cut it out. Yeah.
Yeah, there was this second residency for April planned. We had a second one originally, but budget-wise we couldn't managed it to do. I think what I really agree is it's a European project. I mean, what it made, and the thing is, we got all better to know each other. We got better to know. I really completely agree that we as theater structures, we are not ready for European projects, very honestly. No, big theater, German theaters, community, we are not a state theater, we're a community theater. We're in East Germany, with all our human resources we are under, we are already fighting to get this going, to have our audience, but to put on these projects, I could see I had no resources in the house, I had no support in the house, because and we don't think, we are not ready for a European project. We are ready, let's say, for a federal project, but not on this level, yeah, because it's a European project. You are working in completely different situations. No, I don't have any crew. No, no.
Katja, I think you can take the mic.
This is the problem here in Chemnitz. First, we have no capacity. We have the same problem with European capital. We don't get anyone to Chemnitz. And in the house, this is the point. I could have no one from the house. This is really the thing where I saw that we are not ready to go for that. It's like that.
I wanted to ask you maybe about this period of working on a distance, because, well, maybe for those who watch us online, a little clarification that there was this kickoff residency when people came together in Ljubljana, and there was mentorship phase when artists were kind of coming together and testing different ideas in the space, and then there was a long period, about 7 months or 9 months, something like that, when they were supposed to work individually in their hometowns, testing their ideas and meeting online. And during this period, and also consulting with Anthony, right? And then after this big period of digital work, which in the artistic interview felt like a break in work, which was not supposed to be a break in work, but was supposed to be a digital part of work. Then the tour started, and it felt that it started almost from scratch. So about this period of working on a distance, as I understood from Birgit's explanation, that was this tryout of understanding how can we create this togetherness, and how can we create a work group by not being in a physical space. And it's part of the sustainability strategy. So we're working more on a distance, and can we get the same results? And it feels that from this mode of working, we didn't get the same results. So that this period of digital work was feeling like a breakdown in communication. So what do you think about this? Whether it's crucial to actually get together in physical space, which requires traveling in order to get better artistic results, or it's just about the way of organizing the distant work, and that it could have been done much more effectively? Please.
Several things to say. On paper, that could have worked really well. We have an expression in English that says, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Okay? So some people really took a deep dive and gone, okay, I'm going to process all this information. Where are my interests? Let me start experimenting. And with those people, stuff was sent back and forward, and there was conversation, there was suggestions, there was development ideas, there was a good fluid conversation. Other people, there was almost zero. There was, I'd booked time with everybody individually, loads of sessions and loads of sessions collectively. Loads of that I had to reschedule. Several of those were attended by only a few people, or, you know. And that's difficult, because it's also like there's finite resources to support my time, and I can't make it a full-time job, because it just wasn't like that. My role could have been 4 or 5 or 6 times bigger in a way, but that's not how it was resourced. So yeah, as much as there's communication things, and also that role for me expanding could have helped a lot of that, because there was a lot of liaison that needed to happen and questions which I could have been a conduit for. Quite a few times I had to say, this is not my role. This is my role. It's not this, just to be clear, because I have to protect myself also. Yeah. I'm going to leave it there for the moment.
So you're just saying that, like, people were not responsible enough to show up for meetings. That's the main problem.
I think some were, some weren't, and I just think the level of research wasn't what it should have been, and I think also what people were paid to do, frankly. I'm also like, wow, this is public money, and that's not a, how can you do that? That's not, that's not a good use of public money. Like, what are you doing? Nothing, in some circumstances, which for me is horrifying. Yeah. Yeah.
But do you think that it's, I mean, because it feels to me that this is maybe the effect of this kind of digital alienation, or not enough?
I don't think so at all. I don't think so. As an artist, I mean, everyone's different. I have a pride in what I do. I have a curiosity. I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to develop, I want to test stuff and know that it completely doesn't work. Like, I feel like whatever you're doing in life, once you go, I already know, it's cool, I'm fine, it's this, then I think your life's kind of stopping in some ways. So all the time I was saying, not just in this research, once the journey starts, look at that as an ongoing research, like this space to continually test stuff. You've got such a long journey ahead. Like, there's a beauty in that to go, let's discover as we go. And in the conversations we have, new ideas will keep emerging. Let's just test and see where we go. And I think that spirit of research and investigation was a little missing from some people. And when that happens, it's really hard to find a culture within a team, because it's fragmented already.
I'm thinking maybe like artists want to say something to it. No?
Yeah, but we have to keep now the whole thing. I'm very disturbing, but we have to keep it low because we should have ended at 1 o'clock. And we have 1:30, but we have to be fast then because they open the doors at 2.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, any comments maybe from the artists? From Oliver?
No, I have a total. So apart from this discussion, I have one question for the cooperation with the train. If you tried to have a cooperation with them, and is there a institution that is that is like a European train institution, and with which you can get in contact to get the funding, or to get an organization, or get permission to perform in a train station? Is something like that existing?
No, everyone has to do. Look, the train station in Germany, they're federal. The railway is different. We had all permissions. For Germany, it was no problem. We had contacted them very early already in the process, and they had it in their different, because there are different levels, and everyone has to agree and things, and then it was not a problem. But every country is different, and one are owning the whole thing, the other are owning only the railway, the other are owning the stations, the other are.
So how did you get in contact with all those countries, with the train stations and train companies? Well, that's quite a work.
I have one more question to wrap up the discussion for the partners, but before I wanted to also ask Robin, hello, about like this VR experience, because you kind of sent your piece on a tour with a bunch of artists that were supposed to kind of introduce this piece to the audience in many different towns. How did it feel for you? I mean, were you able to be in touch or get any feedback about how was it happening?
Not so much, no, kind of distantly, and even the dancer doesn't really get in contact with, I mean, the dancer gets a sense of how they have it, but I mean, of course, it's so much in the sort of the physical context. But I mean, I could talk to people sometimes, but of course, what you're talking about now, I mean, I mean, I was a bit on the side, but of course, I noticed this that I'm in communication and how do you say mandat? Like I'm empowered to make decisions. Who makes decisions? Who decides what? Who mandates? Who gives mandates? So that sort of came through. But it was really interesting. I mean, I know there were nice moments, and of course, I think for miscommunication and misunderstandings in the beginning, it was very, very chaotic with the technology. And as then I thought, and now I also think when we talk, there should have been like a kind of, I mean, the hardest job, I think, in a project like this to be a kind of creative executive producer that's also traveling. That would be like, I need a good connection that day. Who am I gonna call? Yeah. Or like, but also towards the crew. Like, you want to do this? Okay, I will make this happen. But there are no more changes. Like, but it's like really hard. It's so demanding. But that's kind of what I. It's also like, who should I talk? Oh, this technician. Oh no, he left now. And I was like, then I call Anna, but she's not prepared. Like I have like it's this kind of who do you like. Especially, I think, on a distance, and it's not power, but it's like the being in charge of making decisions. That's so important when you're not in the same space, because then that allows you to move further. Like, and that power is given by partners or by the crew. Like, it's such a. But I mean, I think it was really interesting for me. And what I hear, maybe it would have been better to have a clearer context and frame for the crew and also for the audience on the site, I think. But it's also been very different. But of course, I miss being there or having someone to talk to there, like to kind of get the not only the vibe of the VR, but like of the entire context, how people are, how they're feeling, how stressed they are. How much you could compromise with my stuff. But I don't know. I have no idea, so I cannot really, and they can't ask me.
So as an artist or as a producer of this kind of content, you would like to be in more control of actually the real life experience of the digital thing.
Yeah. Or at least to feel it more, to be more, like to understand it better, to make better choices for the crew and for the audience and for the experience, yeah. I mean, and that's still, like I said earlier, that's lacking in VR, that you have to have this sense of the, how to say, in real life locality.
Yeah, like togetherness.
Yeah, but I'm also very impressed and happy that this worked. I think it's amazing, and I'm really happy. And I mean, I will do more things in this manner, but yeah, there needs to be in the right way.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe I have the last question that will sound a little bit dramatic. What is the price of slowing things down? That's it. I mean, in terms of resources, time investment, communication, workload on the artists that are supposed to be on the road for so long and stuff like that, because like it feels that there's been a lot of challenges and there's been a lot of revelations about what the real challenges are. So if we are investing something in slowing things down and like greener touring, greener production, so what is the cost of that process?
Well, very quickly, I think it's time and in the very beginning for the implementation process to be even more clear, but also to be very careful in not only to think about the greener sustainability, but also to think about the mental and social sustainability, both when you create the work conditions, but also to be even more careful about practicalities. So actually to be much more careful in the organizing and in the implementation process, but also be very careful about which kind of how you create right work conditions for a touring team.
I'd say like a loss of momentum. I think when things are so stretched, like normally, whether we're making a show for a theatre or outdoors, you have a process and then there's an end point and then maybe there's a tour. And I think because things were so stretched, it's kind of hard to keep the enthusiasm and energy and, you know, ongoing curiosity and thought, because it was a long period of time. And also it cost a fortune. It's hard to repeat these things readily because it's a lot of money.
Maybe the frame could have been more simple. Just a simple frame and good leadership and good negotiations of the responsibilities of the partners in advance. So only 5 things or more.
I don't know if I had anything smart to add, but I think that one thing that might is needed is that it's really hard to measure what the outcome could be in this type of project, and maybe in some way that's something that we need to maybe see as some kind of cost of not being able to be certain of the outcome, and be okay with that in many ways, but still create demands and make clear frameworks, but the outcome is still not as present as a black box show that you repeatedly do. You need to be okay with this will turn out depending on the situation and the people that are at that site at a specific time.
I don't have a smart thing, only stupid things.
Yeah, then we are finishing, and congratulations with the project that it's now almost done. And I think you learned a lot, and the artist learned a lot, and I learned a lot, and everybody, yeah, there's a lot of process, and I really hope that you will take all the learnings and implement them to your projects and your institutions, and will collaborate again and more effectively. And thank you very much for following us. That's it.
And thank you very much for having been here, coming here. And I hope we're going to get you here all 25 when there's something more going on in the city. I thank also my house equipment. Danke, Enrico. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you. Micho is already on. Danke an die Tonabteilung. Und wir sind fertig. Thank you very much.